Hello, how are we? Welcome to the channel. Welcome to this chat all about starting school for the first time. If you have got little ones starting school this September, you are probably feeling all the feelings, okay? I have four children, and I've got to say, each time one of them started school for the first time, it was nerve-wracking, but luckily there are quite a few things that you can do to make the whole process a lot smoother for everyone involved, for parents, for the children, even for the teachers. And there will, of course, always be bonus points for those of you like me parenting in neurospicy families. So my children, in fact, were any of them diagnosed by the time they started school? No, no, none of them at all were diagnosed by the time they started school, thinking back to it. But there were definitely signs. But I think that nurseries, so like childcare settings, and just general education about the place means that a lot more parents are noticing and able to get their children assessed and diagnosed younger and younger. So maybe you are dealing with your maybe well, quite. I'm going to be honest. A lot of you will be dealing with parenting neurodiverse children. You just don't know yet. But a lot of you may be more aware, even at the starting school stage, than perhaps parents would have been a few years ago. But I think I'm jumping ahead of myself. Hello, if you have not been around here before, my name's Rhiannon Morgan. Everyone calls me Ree. You may know me as Mummy of Four because, oh yes, I have four children, all of which have autism, some of which have yet to be diagnosed ADHD. But since I was diagnosed with ADHD myself at age 40, I am nearly 42 later this year. Just we won't talk about that. But I've learned so much about ADHD, and I can see that clearly some of my children have that too. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I have spent so much of my life trying to hack mum life. Turns out I've been trying to hack ADHD and mum life. So I'm going to share all of that with you today. And I'm sure a lot of it will help whether you've got kids starting school for the first time or children going back to school. If you are joining me live on YouTube or on replay for that matter, let me know who you are, where you're tuning in from in the world, how old your kids are, and whether they're starting school for the first time, they're going back to school. I believe our Scottish friends, we are currently mid-August if you're watching live. If you are listening or watching in the future on the podcast or on YouTube, obviously it might be different, but apparently mid-August some Scottish kids are they already going back to school? But here in Wales where I am, and I think England, then it's sort of first week of September most of the kids are going back. But do join the conversation and let me know down in the comments. So let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start, as Maria from The Sound of Music, one of my very favourite films, would say. And my first tip is might be a little bit late for this one, if I'm honest, but if you're watching in the future, this might be helpful, and that's to visit the school ahead of time. So if it is currently, if you're watching live and it's the summer holidays, it's unlikely you're going to be able to get in to physically look at the school in time to take your child in. Hopefully, fingers crossed, you've already done that while you were picking the school, you've been for a tour. But if you're watching this and you've got the time to do it, or your kids haven't started school yet, I definitely recommend physically going to look at the school, speak, and this is even before you pick a school, making sure you're getting the right vibe of the place, that you are seeing not just through a lens of how the school actually wants to be portrayed for inspections, because I think, and don't even get me started on inspections, because I know when our schools have been through inspections, they've had a couple of weeks notice, all the staff have been under tremendous pressure, and then they've had to put on this show, and because all the schools do it, everyone has to do it, and they have to put all this pressure and get everything right. And honestly, I just wish this may, I don't know, teachers chime in, I just wish they'd kind of drop in and just see all the schools as they were and not put this pressure on them to put on this performance, because I don't think it's fair at all. But anyway, I think my point being, it's nice to see the school as it is and as your child would be in it, rather than just seeing how they did in an inspection, because that report, while it can be helpful and a helpful benchmark against other schools, it's only by physically looking around and actually seeing, you know, what are the classrooms like? Do all the kids seem happy? Is it kind of a bubbly environment, or is it a very silent environment? Just seeing what it's actually like. And especially if you've got neurospicy children, they're going to need to see these things too before you actually send them into the classroom. So I know for us, so we're in Wales, just to clarify, and the system's a little bit different with like when they start school here. So I'm using starting school because I think if you're in England, school starts, correct me if I'm wrong, officially they start school in the September during the school year in which they turn 5 and they start reception. Now that's officially when proper school starts in Wales too, in that that's when we have to apply for their places and that's when they start. But my kids all started in either nursery or they're called rising threes. And nursery, not to be confused with what we also call nursery, which is childcare in Wales. So it's very confusing. They should call it something different. But you can go to a nursery, which is childcare, which I think they do in England, pre age 5. But nursery class in Wales is physically attached to the school and it's the class before reception and it's just part of the school. But it's not a compulsory education. They don't have to be there. And while you have to speak to school about getting them into it, you don't officially apply for their place through the council the way you do for reception. So just to clarify, that's the differences. So my kids started nursery in half days, whereas kids in England may not actually go to the actual school until they're going full time, which obviously can be quite a jump. Now, if you've already got kids in the school, your children are going to be a lot more familiar with the school. And if you are watching live in the summer holidays and you're thinking, oh, why was that? I haven't been to the school, haven't got any, I haven't taken my child there, they haven't been for settling in or anything because um my kids were lucky enough they had like a parent and child sort of a transition playgroup thing before school started so that they could go in for the few weeks leading up to it. And it was really lovely. We got to be in the classroom and it was very lovely. I've got vlogs from when they were very small and we did all that. So all of that is super handy to do. But don't panic if that is not something that you can offer your child. There are alternatives, okay? So luckily we have the internet, and chances are your school's website will have lots of pictures of the classrooms and things, so have a look for those. Ask any friends who have been like through the school, have they got any photos of the classrooms? If you're friendly with any of the teachers already in the school, is there just any visual that you can offer your child of where they're going to be? Failing that, social stories, if you don't know, are something that are used with kids with autism to kind of prepare them for how things are going to be in a certain situation. And these are often bespoke and put together with photographs and things. And we were lucky enough last, like at the end of term, that Zara's teacher especially has done nice social stories for her to look at about what her next classroom is going to be. It's like, this is my classroom, these are my friends, it's going to be lovely, that kind of thing. But I found, and there's probably equivalent programs now that were really good, but I found there was a program called Woolly and Tig, which you can probably find on YouTube now. It used to be on the BBC, and it was a little girl from Scotland, and she had a spider that was her toy, but then when no adults were looking, a spider would talk to her. If you don't know what I'm talking about because your kids are a bit younger than mine, then you might think this sounds insane, and it does a bit. But basically, she would go into a situation where she felt uncomfortable and she'd get a bit stroppy, and the spider would be like, "Hey, sort your attitude out." The spider was slightly more polite than that, but the spider would be like, "Hey, it's okay, it's not that bad. See, you don't have to be so stressed out about this." And there's an episode from Woolly and Tig. So it's Wool, like Wooly. Woolly is the spider and Tig is a little girl. And you can look at that. And that's all about starting school. There will just be other children's programs about starting school. So you can just Google like kids programs about starting school. I think there was Topsy and Tim was another one, which Topsy and Tim was a child book series that turned into a BBC, like a kids TV program. So there's one where they start school, that kind of thing. So you can show your kids stuff about starting school, positive things about starting school, so that they can start getting excited for it. And that's just a very long-winded way of saying if you can't get to the school in time. But if you can, if you're watching this ahead of time, if you're listening to the podcast ahead of time, then visit the school, both like on your own to decide on the school, but also any opportunity you're given to go into the classroom, show your child where they're going to be. So it's not daunting, it's not scary. This is especially important when you're neurodiverse children. And while you're doing that visit, if you can ask, obviously make sure there's like no other kids or anything in the photo and explain that you'll only be using it for personal use. But if you can take your own photographs of the rooms, because that's really, really helpful. Okay, next we're going to talk about routine. Okay, we're going to talk about routine. But first of all, I've got something for you. This is my ultimate back to school stock take checklist. Now that's a very long-winded, very, very long-winded. This is free, and I'm going to shove something on screen because there's a link. There you go. If you go to mummyof4.com/, school checklist, I think it is. A school checklist? Yeah, it's just popping on the screen. Yes, mummyoffour.com/school checklist. You can grab this. Now, I know it says back to school stock take checklist. So if your children haven't yet started school and you've got no kids have yet started school, you're not going to need to do the stock take. So the stock take is where you go through what your child or children already have from previous years, and you see what you've got, and then you make a list of what's left to buy. Can still serve you if your child's starting school for the first time. It's a list of everything you are likely to need. Now, it is more than you are likely to need. So maybe you've got a child that won't need to wear pinafores. Maybe you've got a school that won't need to wear ties. In that case, you can just put a line through those things. But this will form your shopping list to make sure you've got everything that you need, so that you are not starting in September going, oh my goodness, I've got the right stuff. And that will guide you through absolutely everything. So check that out. And that is completely free. Okay, so that's mummyoffour.com/school checklist. Okay, so back to just me on screen now. There we go. The tech is hopefully tacking and working today. Let me know, by the way, if you can hear me okay, because the last couple of lives I did, my camera settings seemed fine, my microphone settings seemed fine, but I think my streaming software was doing something bizarre, and apparently if I was a bit quiet. So let me know if you can hear me okay. Okay, so easing into routine early. Okay, now this can be really challenging, especially if it's your first child, because maybe you've not been forced into any form of routine anyway. Now, for me, I found that, especially with subsequent children, with my first child, routine didn't seem to matter to me when he was small, especially because I didn't have any other children. So, you know, it didn't matter, it didn't make a difference. But I certainly found the older that they got, the more leaning into routine rather than trying to fight it really, really helped, especially with regulation and autism stuff. And then when you've got routine naturally imposed upon you by the school day, then there's no fighting it. They've got to get up at a certain time in order to get to school at a certain time. So therefore they need to go to bed at a certain time. And if you can ease into this routine through the summer holidays, now this is a tip I would definitely give everyone, whether they have got kids starting school for the first time or they're going back to school, is not to leave it until a day or two before school to ease into routine, because the years that I've done that, and I've not done that for quite some years, but it's because we had such grief when that happened. So for my kids, especially with autism, they thrive on routine. So we have an element of routine. The summer routine changes compared to the school routine, but we maintain routine through the summer as well as through the term time. And that really, really helps them, because they not only are sort of regulated through the summer, but also it's not such a massive shock and transition. So I've got something else for you. I've got something else for you, okay? This is my Calmstart guide, your first step towards calmer morning routines for you and your child. If I press another button, there should be, oh my gosh, the tech is apparently working well to me today. If you go to mummyoffour.com/routine, then you should be able to download that. That is another free guide, which is going to help you with your morning routines and getting all on top of all of that, so that you are in the right place for back to school. Because ultimately, if you're not starting the day the right way, everyone's leaving the house upset, in a flap, having forgotten things, then they're going to get to school upset, they're not going to have the best time, and then they're going to think they hate school. And that might just be because you're not starting the day the right way. So Calmstart guide, mummyoffour.com/routine. That's especially going to help if you are used to dealing with meltdowns in the mornings. And again, this is not just for kids starting school the first time. If you think of school mornings as, oh my goodness, yikes, that sounds stressful and hellish, this is for you. Calmstart guide, mummyoffour.com/routine. So labeling everything. Labeling everything. I haven't got a little thing to pop up on screen for this, but if you go to mummyoffour.com/labels, I don't think I've even got any to show you right here. That's a bit unprepared of me, isn't it? But basically, the labels I've been using have been absolutely flipping amazing, and they're the only ones I actually use. Now, you can choose anything you want to label your kids' stuff, but if you ever want to see it again, please, 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 if you take one thing away from this, it's just label everything. And if you are not fussed on ever seeing it again, that's fine, don't label it. But just be happy to wave anything out of the house and into school that is not labeled goodbye forever. Farewell, I do not plan to ever see you again. And this could be anything. You think a child would be able to recognize their own cardigan or jumper. They won't. You would think they would know which ones are their shoes. They probably won't, especially not if they're starting school. If they're starting school like my kids did at like Will started the term after his third birthday. Dylan's a July baby, so he didn't start till like the normal nursery class, which was the school year in which they turn 4. So he started uh, just in September, did 1 year of half days. But the girls, Bella started a couple of days after her third birthday. I think Zara was the day after her third birthday. They were tiny little babies, okay? And the stuff you've got to send in is a lot more when your children are that young because they are more likely to get mucky, have accidents, soak themselves on the water table, fall in the mud, all of the above. So not only are you going to have to send them in the stuff they're wearing, but you are going to have to send in spares as well, which is something I would like to add. I'm not sure if I've written this on my list of stuff I want to talk about with you, but make sure you are sending in not just the clothes that they're wearing, but spares too. I'm talking spare everything from the waist down, really. Spare pants, spare socks, spare leggings and skirts, spare trousers. And they can just live either if they've got a peg in school, they could live there, their spare set. They don't have to carry them back and forth. They could live there with their PE kit if that's something that's going to have to live in school, or they could live in the bottom of their bags. I would also put some sort of wet bag in. And what I've ended up doing over the years is just every time, when my kids were little enough anyway, anytime they were like spare pants and leggings and stuff that maybe weren't in perfect condition, maybe we didn't want to pass them on to someone to wear, but they're absolutely fine if they're washed and clean to donate to those young classes in school for like reception, nursery age. Because if someone's had an accident and they haven't had spares sent in by the parents, then they get sent in the kind of the sort of the lost property stuff. So it's always nice for the schools to have a stash of spares, that kind of thing. But if you don't want your child coming home in lost property when they may have had an accident, then you know, send in spares. And you might think, well, my child hasn't had an accident in absolutely ages. But school is a really big transition for them. They might have been potty trained for years, and they may still have an accident in school, maybe because they're nervous, they don't know where the toilets are, or they're so caught up in playing, or like I said, they just get soaked using the like play water tables. So spares are absolutely an essential, which brings me back to the labeling. So the labels I like to use, if you go to mummyoffour.com/label, is it label or labels? Oh gosh, I don't know. That's not very organized of me, is it? Okay, I'll put all that down in the description as soon as I get off the live. Anyway, mummyoffour.com/label/labels. It's probably both. To be honest, if you typed in either, it would probably work. But if you go to that URL, then that will take you to the labels that I use and love. The other place I've got everything recommended actually and linked is inside of my organized back to school planner. Now, this is a back to school planner that goes alongside a workshop that I ran inside of my organized life club. So if you go to mummyoffour.com/school planner, that will take you directly to the planner and the workshop. That is included for all organized life club members. My organized life club, by the way, is where we can hang out a little bit more. There are new printables every month to get us organized for the season that we are currently facing. This is a place for busy, overwhelmed mums, especially parenting in neurodiverse households. And we just go through everything together. So there's workshops going through different elements of routine. There's already one in there working through mealtime routines and things. So if that's something you find stressful, then that's already in there for you. But the back to school planner also contains all of the links to all of the bits and pieces that I'm talking about. I go into that in a whole load more depth, so you can check that out if that's something you're interested in. There's also inside in along in that actual link as well, the back to school pack for kids. This is super helpful for children of all ages, especially neurospicy children. So there's all about me sections that either you can get your kids to fill out themselves, or you can fill out with them or for them. You know, they can dictate and you can write it down, or they can draw pictures. It's a nice little activity. There's also some like things to know about me. I feel happy when, I feel nervous when, it helps me when grown-ups, blah, 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 blah. I feel sad or overwhelmed. You could fill these things in and you could give these things to your child's teacher if you want them to know specifics about your child. It's the kind of thing that you could fill in yourself and give to your child's teacher. Then there's places to talk about feelings about going back to school, things you're excited about, nervous about, and it's just a good prompt for conversations or something they can write or draw themselves, things they're worried about, questions they have, things that you can go through with them. So that is all there available for you if you go to mummyoffour.com/school planner alongside the workshop and the planner. Okay, so yes, labeling everything. And I'm talking about tops, bottoms, water bottles, bags. I mean, you can't really label socks. If you ever want to see pants again, maybe even those. But if they are ever likely to take it, if they can physically take it off the body, they can lose it. So label everything. The ones I like to use are machine washable and dishwasher safe. So I literally just stick them in the care labels of clothes. Gone are the days where you have to sew in labels. Like years ago, I had name labels sewn in. I think when Dylan was little, actually, I had to sew in name label. It was such a pain. Although the iron-on ones, and then they go a bit peely if you did them. Such a pain. These stick-in ones are amazing. I use them for everything. And even before I went to school, actually, I used them for everything. Coats are a big one. Still coats. I even would label my coats because sometimes we go to soft play or something and scooping everything up. I think, well, chances are my coat's going to be the one left behind. But we've literally had phone calls from soft play centres and all sorts of places going, hey, we found this in lost property. We found like Will left one of his Disney Cruise Line hoodies that he loves in lost property. It's amazing. And in fact, I always used to stick the labels inside my children's shoes when they used to like fling them from the pram when they were tiny. And we've had shoes returned to us, within the hour. It's been brilliant. Okay, I'm gonna have a super quick look at the comments. Zainab says hello, and yes, I am doing another live on the weekend. So if you are interested in all things Disney Cruise Line, then I am doing a live talking about all things Disney Cruise Line and autism and talking about that, and that's on Sunday on my other channel. Santhe's watching from Australia. So when do you go back to school in Australia? I know the seasons are different in Australia, so are the school years different? Really curious. Chloe says hi, Len says hi. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of my drink before we keep chatting. Okay, so my next tip was to pack a spare outfit. Already covered that, well done, Ray. And then was my 5-day uniform system. So this is basically I like to purchase 5 of everything. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to track when they're older and maybe they're not gonna get totally mucky every single day. Bella, for example, now my 3rd baby is going into year 6. Can we believe it? She's got Leavers hoodies and she's only got 3, so she's not got one for each day. We're going to trust her to hopefully not lose them. I mean, it's literally got her name on the outside as well as in the labels. Hopefully not lose her jumpers and hopefully not slop food on herself every single day. So maybe she can wear a hoodie because it's not next to her skin. She's not sweating on it. Hopefully she can wear that more than once. When they're tiny, I would not trust them with this. If you don't start the year with 5 jumpers, 5 trousers or skirts, whatever, 5 tops, then you are going to have problems. The problems you're going to have are, number one, you're going to be having stressful mornings because you're having to like chase the laundry through the week and it's just a lot to stay on top of. You are going to have problems when your child loses their one, or if they've only got 1 or 2 jumpers and they lose those jumpers, you have 0 to 1 jumpers now. So you're going to end up incredibly stressed out. Now, obviously it's not an affordable option for everyone, but there are ways to make it affordable. So I've always purchased wherever I can get away with it. Not all schools do it, but I've always purchased the school uniform from supermarkets. I have no affiliation with them, but I kind of like Georgia Asda stuff. I always find it washes quite well, and I quite like little features they have on the designs. So that is very, very affordable. I then donate all our uniform that is not so shredded, it just needs to go to recycling, to either friends, and then they have the use of that uniform, or I donate it straight to the school and they literally sell it. They have like a school uniform sale thing to raise money for the school, and each item is sold for £1. So you could pick up stuff that is lightly used, pre-loved. You can use Facebook Marketplace, you could trade with friends, you go to the supermarkets and get it new. But whatever you do, if you can manage to get your hands on a set of 5 of everything, it's going to change your flipping life. And then you just have a system where you either have like a different box, a different basket. I have one of those hanging systems for the kids, and you have 5 of 5 slots. You put everything for each day in that slot. I used to do a system where I had a hanger years ago. If you were in the old house, you might remember this, where I just put everything that had to wear on a hanger. Then I had like a clear pouch and I'd hang that on the outside of the hanger. And in the clear pouch, I'd put like pants, socks, hair accessories, that kind of stuff, so that it was just one hanger. I'd grab it and sort it. Everything was sorted on the weekend, and I'd just be like, right, that's everything they've got to put on. And it's a game changer because you just sort it on the weekend. eases up the stress in the mornings. Before I did this, it'd be like, "Mum, I can't find my insert XYZ thing," every single morning, and it was so stressful. So if you've got 5 of everything, that's gonna be easier, and like I said, when you lose things, you're not gonna be, you know, super stressed out. Oh, any parents on here still shopping Vinted has saved us for uniform. Oh, loads of branded new and with tags under £5. Amazing. Okay, amazing. I never got into like, should I be selling stuff on Vinted? Is that something I should be doing? I end up just donating everything. I don't think I ever sell anything. I don't even use Facebook Marketplace anymore because I just get so stressed out with it and I end up just donating it to friends or the school or whatever. But maybe should I be using Vinted? I don't know. Is that something that really takes a lot of time? As Xanthi says, Australian school year runs from end of January to mid-December. Oh, that makes sense. So it actually runs with the year. That makes sense. You start a new school year at the new year. Wow, that makes so much sense. Divide into 4 terms with 2 weeks break between terms. Currently, we're in term 3. Okay, so it's a totally different system then. I think America, if anyone's tuning in from America, I think America run I think they run a bit earlier than us, but it's a similar, starting the new academic year, you know, August or September, isn't it? I think America and the UK seem to do that. But yeah, maybe Australians have it right and just run it with the year, and you just are in a school year for the actual calendar year. Makes a lot of sense. Okay, next tip, moving on from uniform, is to try on and pre-wash everything. So this is important for a few reasons. Number one, if you have bought brand new jumpers and your child puts on this brand new jumper, and then when they take off the jumper, their t-shirt underneath will be covered in fluff. I don't know what it is with school jumpers, wherever I bought them from. They are fluffy on the inside until they've been washed. I always like to buy school uniform at least one size above because I tumble dry it like mad. I don't tumble dry most of the children's like day-to-day nicer clothes because I don't want them to wear and feel worn too much. And I find that tumble drying kind of wears things more, wears the clothes out. But with school uniform, I don't have it in me to be drying things separately. It all goes in the dryer, regardless of the time of year. I do get asked, actually, why don't I dry stuff outside? 2 reasons. Number one, I live in Wales and it rains randomly at random times. And number two, we have birds that kind of nest around the place and poop in the garden. And if I have to wash things again because a bird has pooped on it, I'm going to cry. So all the school uniform goes in the dryer, and it just needs to be kind of like hardy stuff. Again, if there's 5 of everything, then everything is physically washed less, so it lasts a bit longer, even though it's being kind of abused by the dryer. But if you try on everything and you pre-wash it, you're going to get rid of the fluff on the inside of the jumpers, which is such a pain to actually get off the t-shirts underneath. If you've ever had your child put on a brand new hoodie or fleece or something, and then the fluff gets on the t-shirt, it's so hard to get it off after that. It's such a pain. So pre-wash all of that. It's also then going to make sure you've checked it for any tags, anything that feels uncomfortable. If your child has tried it on, then again, you aware, especially like if you're dealing with children on the spectrum who are hypersensitive to certain textures, you're going to be able to identify which bits are like itchy or scratchy. Are there any labels that need cutting out? Do they need to wear a vest underneath something? Or, just to make it sort of more sensory friendly. And of course, then it's also going to smell familiar. So if you have already pre-washed the uniform in the same washing powder and everything that you wash all of your stuff with, then all of the uniform is going to smell familiar. It's going to feel softer and nicer on their skin. And it's just all these tiny little things. If you think of the book Atomic Habits, it talks about just making lots of tiny little micro changes to add up to big changes. And it talks about if a plane is flying in a direction and it changes course by 1 degree, then that doesn't seem like much, but actually it all adds up over time and you'd end up in a totally different place. And all these tiny little things I'm talking about might just sound like, well, that's really insignificant. But when you add them all up, it's going to make your child's experience of starting school that much more positive than if you didn't do any of them at all. So if you just do some of them, great. But the more tiny little things that you can implement, it's going to make the transition period more pleasant for them. And it's just going to make life less stressful for you. So we've got 5 of everything, we've washed it, we've tried it on our children to make sure not just that it fits, but they are physically comfortable with it and they got excited. You could even do pictures of them wearing it. You could print out pictures and be like, oh, getting excited. I like to do the letterboard whenever I remember. Not every year I remember, but letterboard pictures. I've got letterboards and I write, starting school and the date and the year or whatever. And it's nice to have those pictures. That's something they can get involved with and get excited about. And you'll be so glad of those pictures as they grow when you look back, like, look how tiny they were. So, just get your children involved in this stuff so they can get excited in the prep rather than just it all happening to them. They can happen with them and that they're involved in it. And that's really, really nice. So we need to talk about what to expect. So ideally, your child's been to visit the school. It doesn't always happen, but if your child hasn't got to visit the school yet, you can find your pictures online, you can watch the shows and talk about the way the day is going to go, talk about things that they may expect, things like the toilet and who to ask. Just talk to your children about, like, if there's anything you need to ask, then you ask Mrs. So and so. And this may be stuff that seems obvious to you, like, well, if they've got a problem, they need to ask. But when they're very, very tiny, it's the stuff that needs pointing out. So talk to them about, like, if you don't know where something is, ask Miss So and so. And one thing that's really important to point out, and not all of my children knew about this, was that if you have been to a playgroup at the school before where the mummies stay, which is Bella especially had this issue, and then I really was kind of harping on the point with Zara. But I'd been to the school classroom with her for this playgroup, and I'd failed to mention, because I thought it was obvious because her brothers got left at school, that I was going to take her to school and leave her there and go. I hadn't pointed this out, that I wasn't going to stay in school. So with Zara, it's like, right, what's going to happen? And we called it school group rather than school, like I did with Bella when I was going with her. And then it was school group and big school. So we just kept going over and right. So what's going to happen? So mummy's going to I'm going to take you to school. You're going to give mummy a big kiss and you're going to go in and have fun. Mummy's going to go home and do some work. And then I'm going to come back and pick you up. And even if you've got kids that you already do this routine with, like I did, and I thought it was therefore obvious, it's not necessarily obvious to your child that you're actually going to leave them there, especially if you haven't left them places before. So make sure you point this out to your child, that that's what's going to happen. And then you can talk about, the uniform that they've got, the bag they're going to take, all this kind of stuff, and just really get them involved and excited. And the more that they can know what to expect, the easier it's going to be. Something I feel I need to warn you about is the day two drama. Often when children start school, sometimes they start school and they're really excited about it. But then on day two, they're like, hang on, sorry, I have to go back. No, no, I did school. It was great. But that's done now. You want me to go back? And you're like, yeah, every day for a really long time, years and years. And they are displeased by this. And I actually found this with Zara because she was one of the COVID kids that started nursery rising threes, and then she had to go back to school in September. So COVID hit March, didn't it? And she'd been in school about 3 or 4 weeks. So when she had to go back to school in September, she was like, no, no, I did school. That's done now. It's like, no, it's not actually. We'll be going back. So talking to them about not just the expectation of what's happening in the day, but that we have 7 days in the week and you'll be going to school on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you'll be home with mummy and daddy on Saturday, Sunday. And this might seem like obvious stuff, not necessarily to your child. And if you discuss it in advance, you're gonna find it a lot easier. I've just remembered actually a book that really helped Zara, especially, was a book called The School Unicorn, which we really liked, about a little girl that had a unicorn. And this school unicorn helped her magically. I can't remember the exact details of the story, but it magically helped her and it went in her pocket with her and it made the whole transition to school easier. Something that also really helped my little ones was to draw a hug button on my hand and on their hand. And what I do, I think we did hearts, and we still do this sometimes. And we draw a heart on my hand and we draw a heart on their hand. And even when the pen is washed off, because you don't want your kids not washing their hands because they've got the hug button, but even when it's washed off, it's still there and it's a connection between the two of you. And when you press it, you can send a hug. And that was just something that really, really helped them. Something else that will help you as a parent is to look at the school schedules and logins and apps and things. A lot of this you're not going to know until your kid actually starts. But when they send you stuff, make sure you save it somewhere sensible, because they're going to give you a load of passwords to your class charts and your Google Classrooms and your squiggles and your seesaws and your, there may be a whole ton of different things you're expected to log into. So whenever anything comes home, make sure you have got that saved. You've got it in one folder on your phone, and chances are you'll get sent some sort of login. You won't need to log into it for months anyway, and then you won't have the details. So make sure anything sent home at all is saved somewhere sensible. And in order to receive things, luckily most things are digital now, but make sure the school have got your up-to-date contact details. That's your phone number, your email address, or the emergency contact, and all of that is up to date, especially if you've moved house since you applied for your child's place. It's also really important that you save the school's details in your device and you add them to like a safe sender or a favorites list, so things aren't going to spam or to junk. You might want it so that when you're working, like for example, when I work, I have sort of do not disturb modes on my phone. The only people that can actually get through to me are my children, my husband, and the children's school, because if the school are phoning me in the middle of the day, it's probably because they need me quite urgently. So make sure all of those details are fully up to date. I'd go into this a lot more in my workshop, but set up systems for your school bags, your school lunches. So it's far too much to talk about right now, but we have a school bag station by the front door. We have stations for homework and things, a lot more relevant when your children are older, especially in secondary school. I think next week we're talking all about secondary school systems. So we have a folder system for secondary school, but all of these systems, if the more you can set up and systemize, the easier your life's going to be day to day. Homework when they're little is going to vary a lot from school to school, but remember, it's supposed to add and enhance their learning, not be a big thing or a big battle. So talk to your child's school about their homework policy. I would check your kid's bag every single day, because they might be leaving something disgusting and smelly in there and rotting and gross. So if you don't check it, then you're not going to see that stuff. But see if there's anything sent home from the school. Find out when the homework's going to be and plot it in your calendar as to when you're going to be doing those things, so that you've allocated some time, because sometimes they'll expect quite a lot of the children. But remember, it's not the be all and end all. If your child is overtired, overstimulated, it's okay to say to the teacher, we didn't do the homework this weekend because we were dealing with X, Y, and Z. And any decent teacher, especially teaching very young kids, is going to be understanding of that. So try and build it into your routine, but don't stress over it either. Remember that if your child's starting school, you're going to be the new mum in the yard, just like your child is the new kid too. So have a think about that, because you might be a bit nervous about that. Be open to making friends, because you're going to be with these people for a long time. If your child is starting school, they're going all the way through primary school together, maybe on to secondary school after that. You're going to be friends with these people for a long time. So find out if there are WhatsApp groups. WhatsApp groups are a blessing and also the devil. They are really handy for finding out what's going on, for making sure you can get in touch with people for party invitations, for finding out if there is a homework or a dressing up day because your child hasn't given you the right information or you've forgotten it or whatever. But they can also be a bit wild. So please adhere to proper WhatsApp group etiquette, and do not chit chat on it about, if it's a huge WhatsApp group, it's like 30 people in it, chit chat about, oh, should we meet at 4 o'clock? Oh, no, how about 10 past 4? Oh, save that for like private chats, okay? Don't bother everyone with that. And the only appropriate response to, has anyone seen this cardigan, is yes, I have it, or don't respond. Not like, have you thought of this? I'll have a look. We haven't got it, but millions. It's spamming the WhatsApp groups, okay? It's the reason that I have to have all of my WhatsApp groups on mute forever, because they really stress me out and I never get any work done if they're always on. So get involved in the WhatsApp group, but just remember that you're going to have to mute them if you ever want to get any work done, because they'll be like ping, 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 ping. So set a reminder maybe to check them once a day, and then you can check out of them. Remember that you do not have to wait for parents' evening to speak to your child's teacher. If your child has had difficulties or challenges at home, it's important to convey that information to the teacher. Now, it's not always going to be convenient to have an in-depth chat at drop-off or pick-up, because obviously teachers have got a lot on. But find out what's the best system, and it's best to just speak to your child's teacher about this once. What's the best system of notifying? Some schools have a system where you can message them through an app, or maybe there's like a code word or something, or you could just figure out what the child's school teacher system is, what's the best way that you can communicate with them to say, hey, we've had these difficulties. What's the best way to communicate how their day has gone? Will you get sort of notified or reports or whatever? Because you do not need to wait till that end of your report, that end of term teacher meeting or anything to communicate with your child's teacher. And especially if you've got neurospicy children, you're going to need to have so much more contact with the school than if you've got a neurotypical child. And the best way to nurture these relationships with the school is really to get involved and help wherever you can. So like I say, we donate things when we can to the school. We had the nursery ended up having a lot of our play equipment from the garden and things because I was grateful that our school was taking care of the children. So obviously I want to give back a bit. But the more you can kind of support the school, maybe you can go and do reading with children. I know I've gone in and done like video projects and things with the school because that's kind of within my wheelhouse and my skill set. But anything you can do to help the school and be like, hey, I'm an approachable parent that's here to help, then the teachers are going to be more likely to be able to know they can approach you if there's a problem. And just to have that really open dialogue really makes a difference with your entire school experience, both for you and your child. Remember, starting school isn't a race. They're all going to settle in at their own period of time. But I know, shout out if you're a teacher in the comments actually, and you agree with this. But I know when I've asked over the years, friends of mine, the teachers, what's the best advice they can give? The best advice is do not drag out that drop off. Okay. Don't be like, darling, goodbye. Farewell. I shall miss you. Just be like, hi, darling. Can have a great day in school. Right. Mummy's off now. Can't wait to pick you up later. See you later. Mwah. Bye. If you need to cry, go and do it around the corner. I mean, I did every time. I cried every time they all started school. Okay. I just did it out of sight. Held it together, wear sunglasses if necessary, top tip, and go and cry round the corner where your child can't see you blubbing. Because if they see that you're emotional, they're going to get emotional. If you're kind of hanging on and being like, oh, are they all right? Are you sure they're all right? That's when the teacher finds it really hard to settle the children. And chances are if you just go really swiftly, they're going to settle much quicker. And even if they cry when you drop them off, if you leave quite quickly, they'll settle much quicker than if you linger. So that is just a tip that I've always heard from the teachers, especially in our nursery class and reception classes. Um, so if your child does have any specific difficulties, if they're neurodivergent, if they're on the pathway for something, if you believe they need to be on the pathway for something, do not wait to share that information. Make sure you communicate that with your child's school ASAP because that's important information. If you've noticed any signs of neurodivergence and you need the school's support with getting assessments and things, then the sooner they know what they're looking out for, the more helpful they're going to be able to be. And ultimately, early intervention is everything when it comes to supporting kids with autism and ADHD, especially. I'm sure lots of other things too, but that's just what I have personal experience with. So make sure you share that information. I know I made a Will, who's our second baby, was the first one that I had kind of any inkling may have had autism, and I know in the settling in. I think we just had one settling in session with Will, actually. It wasn't a play group as such. In the settling in session, I said, look, I'm pretty sure he's somewhere on the spectrum. It's a very flippant comment. But he's not going to, he can read already. He can, he was like academically quite advanced. He was 3, just turned 3. And I said, look, but you're not going to get him to join in. You're not going to wear shoes indoors and all these things. And she sort of took that on board and then clearly kept an eye out for things and then came back to me a few weeks after he'd started school and said, I think you're right. We need to start the process. So if I'd not made that comment, would she still have noticed? Possibly, but I think she was probably more hypervigilant in looking for things because I'd made that comment and then we were able to get the ball rolling. So make sure you have downloaded, these are very important, the free checklist for the morning routine, because honestly, if you don't start your school morning routines the right way, then the whole day is going to go a little bit wonky. So you go to mummy4.com/routine to get my Calmstart guide. Inside the Calmstart guide, actually, I forgot to mention this earlier, there are also children's printable. They're on a separate one. Hang on, they're over here. Let me grab it. Um, we've also got inside the Calmstart guide, school. This is the school holiday version. There's also school morning routine checklists. There's blank versions of this as well. So I'm just trying to show you so you can see on screen. Sorry, apologies if you're listening to the podcast, but you can head over to YouTube if you need to see this, or you can just go to mummy4.com routine. You can see it. But there are versions that have pictures. And then it says the word toilet, for example, of what you want them to do each day, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to tick them off. There are also blank versions of this without the words, so you can draw your own pictures, write your own words, you can put together your own morning routine. So the school holiday versions, weekend reversions, and there you go. And there's the school morning version, which actually goes Monday to Friday. And those are all within the Calmstart guide. And then, of course, you are also going to need the school checklist, which I have put where here. That's the ultimate back to school stock take checklist. And that, if you go to mummyof4.com/school checklist, you can grab that. It is completely free, and that will take you through everything you need to prepare before, as in purchase and prepare to send into school with your child. And then if you want to take it one step further, you want the entire planner, which is the organised back to school planner, which has got everything in it. So this is like 2 pages per page if you follow. So there's absolutely loads of content in there to go through, and the entire workshop that takes you through that entire planner, plus the kids back to school printables. That is all inside of the Organised Life Club. So if you go to mummyof4.com/school planner, you can grab all of that. Also, as a member of the Organised Life Club, you'll also get our monthly planning parties, access to all the workshops. You get the Organised Life Binder starter kits. You can organise your life just day to day as a busy mum. So much inside of there. So head to mummyof4.com/OLC to check out a little bit of that. And just because you've stayed all this time to the end, I've got something else for you, okay? If you go to mummyof4.com/OLC and use code ORGOLC20, so that's AUGOLC20, you'll get 20% off either your first month or your first year inside the Organised Life Club during the month of August 2025. So if you are watching live or listening live, or at least live-ish or on replay reasonably promptly, then you'll be able to utilise that code. So thanks so much for joining me for the live or podcast episode. If you're listening on the pod, then good luck with back to school. Hope it all goes swimmingly for you. And I will see you next week for another live where we are talking all about starting secondary school. So if you've got kids that are that little bit older, they're taking that big jump from year 6 to year 7, that's what we're going to be talking about. I'll see you guys then. Bye.